Hello everyone, Shroomraver here, and today we are back for episode number 3 of the Nickname Academy. Yes, indeed. As you may know, this is the series where I'm going to go through every single Pokemon from Bulbasaur through to Zeraora and give them all nicknames. And once Gen 8 comes out, we're going to nickname those guys as well. I've been informed in the comment section, I can't remember who it was now. Might have been Lagadier, I'm not sure. But of course, Meltan is a new thing that one day I will be nicknaming, but it is not this day because we are still in Generation 1. Last time we left off with Wigglytuff, so let us crack right on to the next Pokemon in our list, and that is going to be Zubat. Yes, Zubat all over the place in the wild, and we're going to be nicknaming this guy Rodriguez because there is a type of fruit bat called the Rodriguez fruit bat, and there is a large family, exhibit, colony, group of Rodriguez fruit bats in London Zoo. So that would make them zoo bats. Yep, there we go. We are right back into it. Now that one's fairly simple, but we're going to get a little bit more complex as we move on to Zubat's evolution, which is going to be, of course, Golbat. Golbat is going to be called how the hell do I say that? Sometimes I don't even know how I pronounce the nicknames I've given, especially when they're named after things. So, Illaramendi. Yes, let's go with that. So, Illaramendi, we are nicknaming this guy after Asie Illaramendi. I hope I'm not butchering that. Now, those of you who don't know who that is, and I didn't know who that was until quite recently. It's one of my most recent additions. Asie Illaramendi. Oh, Jesus Christ. Asie Illaramendi is the captain of football team Real Sociedad. He's a defender, which works because Golbat is, of course, super bulky. And he is actually from the Basque country. He has played internationally for the Basque country and has scored 1 goal for them. Now, when we take the two parts of Golbat's name, Gol and Bat, and we put them through Google Translate, that really reliable source, and we translate them from the language of the Basque, Gol is goal and bat is 1. Gol bat, goal 1, 1 goal for Basque, defender, bulky, Golbat. Done. Now, next, I'm under a lot of pressure for this one, and I don't think it's going to go well, because next up we have Oddish. I'm under so much pressure from my good friend Evelyn to give this one a good name, and I'm not naming it after Evelyn. We are nicknaming Oddish kind of weird. Because if something's weird, then it's odd. But if something's kind of weird, it's only odd-ish. God, I hope she's happy with that. Evelyn, I hope you're happy with that one. It's probably one of my weaker ones, but it is absolutely nothing compared to the weakness of the next nickname. That is going to be Gloom, which is going to be nicknamed Murk. Because if something's gloomy, it's murky. Ladies and gentlemen, these nicknames are not all clever. They're not all super crazy wordplay based on the different parts of Pokemon's names. Sometimes they are just simplistic and dumb, and that is one of them. So, final evolution in that line is going to be Vileplume, and that is going to be called Sulphur, because sulphur smells bad, especially when it's burning. It has a really pungent, nasty smell when it's burning, and when things burn, they give off smoke. In the big plumes of smoke, so sulphur burning would be a pretty vile plume. There we go. Now, I'm probably going to get pressured for these next ones as well, because next up, we have Paras. Now, I did say at the very, very start of this series that I'm not going to be nicknaming Pokemon directly after people, but that people themselves might play a role in the nickname, and this is going to be one of those moments. Paras is called Shoelaces. Now, the reason behind this is because shoelaces are things that trip you up if they're undone. Now, you may know a fellow in the community called Pokemon Trip HD, my man Trip. I first came across him when he was in the Battle Union, TBU, and in I think his first season of that, he was absolutely plagued by paralysis. Constantly, every battle he was just being paralysed. So Trip hates Paras. So that's what we've called it, Shoelaces. I know. It's lots of tenuous links in that one, but I found these ones kind of hard to nickname, some of them. Not so much for the next one, and again I'm going to get lots of pressure for this because you know who it is. Paras evolves into my channel mascot, Parasect. Not one of my favourite Pokemon of all time at all. And no, I'm not going to name it after myself, but kind of a little bit. We've called this guy Trash Fashion. Now, for those of you who don't know, Trash Fashion is a musical group, and they did that song It's a Rave, Dave. Not a very good song. I wouldn't actually know how it goes, but It's a Rave, Dave kind of plays into my name. My name is Dave, many of you know that, some of you may not have known that. What many of you won't know is the fact that my nickname at university was Rave. There's a long story behind that, we're not going to go into it. But it did kind of inspire my YouTube name of Shroomraver. So we've got Parasect, Dave, Shroom, Rave, it's all there, all the pieces are there, and they all combine to form Trash Fashion. Now, next up we have Venonat. Venonat is going to be called Arnold. Reason for this is, in the Harry Potter series, I think it was Ginny, got a pet pygmy puff, which is a magical creature. I think it's sort of bred from another creature called a Fwooper or something. I'm getting sidetracked. She had a purple pygmy puff and she called it Arnold. Pygmy puff, the purple pygmy puff, is just a ball, a fuzzy purple ball, and that's exactly what Venonat is, so we've gone with Arnold. Now, next on the list is going to be Venomoth, and we're going to call this guy Processionary. Now, this was very difficult for me to come up with, but Processionary comes from the oak Processionary Moth. Now, I found it really difficult to find venomous moths, but this apparently is one of them, especially when it's in the kind of caterpillar larval form. It has these hairs called setae that are venomous to humans. So this is as close to a venom moth as I could get, so we're going to go with Processionary for this one. Next up, we have Diglett. Diglett, of course, at home in Diglett's Cave and many others around the place. We're going to call Diglett Iceberg. It has long been a mystery. What is below the ground when Diglett is there? And, you know, there's all sorts of drawings online of what could be below there. Some of them are quite funny, some of them are deeply disturbing. But either way, we're not sure what's under the surface, and that's why we've called it Iceberg, because you only see the tip of the iceberg out of the water, and below it's just massive, and you don't really know how big it is, and you don't really know what's there. And that's kind of what we're working with Diglett here. No one knows what's under the ground. No one's ever seen it, I don't think. So that's why we've gone with with Iceberg for that one. Diglett, of course, evolves into Dugtrio. Now, I've heard many great nicknames for Dugtrio, but the one I'm going to go with is Roper. And this is one of my big explanation nicknames. So, reasoning here. There is an American sitcom, I believe it's American, which many of you may have heard of, called Three's Company. Which basically, as far as I'm aware, I've never actually seen it, but as far as I'm aware, it revolves around these three people living together in an apartment. Now, I've done some research into this particular series, sitcom, and the the owner, the landlord of the apartment that's featured in the sitcom, the last name of the landlord is Roper. And there are three people living in Roper's apartment, and Dugtrio is made up of three moles. So that kind of works, and just to tie it all together, the main thing that ties this nickname together is the fact that moles, as an animal, which Dugtrio is loosely based off, the collective noun for a group of moles is a company. It's a company of moles. Roper is the landlord from Three's Company, three moles, all together, Dugtrio. There we go, that's why we've gone with that nickname. Now that one is one of the more elaborate ones. Now we're going to get into one of the possibly the most stupid I've ever come up with. Because next up we have Meowth. Meowth is going to be called, and this is a long nickname, it won't fit on Wi-Fi, but it just about, I believe, fits on Showdown with the 18 characters, Keith Lemon's home. Why is this? Well, Keith Lemon is a TV presenter, and between you and me, a really unfunny TV presenter. Don't like his work, but successful dude. What is with the bandage on his hand? Does anyone know? Answers on a postcard. Anyway, Keith Lemon's home. Now, Keith Lemon is he's from somewhere up north. He's got a northern accent of sorts, and it's coupled together with a lisp, which is a bit unfortunate But if you sound out him talking about his home, he would literally say, Meowth! Meows, my house, meows, meowth. It works phonetically, and that's what we've gone with, the phonetic saying of how he would describe his home, Keith Lemon's home, Meowth. So from the ridiculous to the slightly less ridiculous, Meowth of course evolves into Persian, and Persian is going to be called the Prince. Reason for this is a series of games made, I think made by Eidos? Do you know, I can't remember, but they're for like PlayStation. Prince of Persia. The only one I've ever played is Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time for PS2. Let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, I was shit at it. Really bad at platform games, me. But the protagonist of this was an unnamed prince who was just called the Prince. He was the Prince of Persia. He's Persian. He is literally Persian, and that's why we're calling Persian the Prince. So, from Persian we move to Psyduck. Psyduck is going to be called Ada Campe. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, I could be completely butchering it. Now, Ada Campe is a performer who performed at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival with a really weirdly named act that also is kind of curious to me. I'd really like to see what it was all about. But the act is literally just called Ada Campe and the Psychic Duck. Which, you know, yes, that sounds really interesting. I'd really like to see what this whole Psychic Duck thing is about. I've never been to the Edinburgh Fringe, but I'd quite like to. But that's why we've called Psyduck Ada Campe, because Psyduck is a psychic duck of sorts. It's not psychic type, which is slightly odd, but there we go. Psyduck Ada Campe. Moving on from Psyduck, which of course evolves into Golduck. Golduck is going to be called Shakonga. Again, so many this episode that I don't know if I'm pronouncing right, but Shakonga is what we're going to be calling Golduck, and the reason for that is it's the Cherokee name for a certain individual called Blue Duck. Blue Duck was an outlaw in the late 19th century. I think he was active around the 1870s, 1880s. But yeah, name was Blue Duck, which is exactly what Golduck is. But we're not just going to call Golduck Blue Duck, because that's way too obvious. So we're going to call Golduck Shakonga, which is the other name for Blue Duck. Next up, guys, this one's really silly. Mankey. Now, I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce how you say this exact name. You're just going to see on your screen a long list of numbers, apostrophes, and letters. That's what we're working with here. Now, what that long list of numbers, apostrophes, and letters is the latitudinal and longitudinal locations for Man Key, which is a key, or island of sorts, in the Florida Keys. It's literally called Man Key. I believe there is actually also a Woman Key. But Man Key is Man Key. That's what it is. So I've just gone with the measurements. The latitude and longitude for where Man Key is. I've never used a Man Key like particularly. If I ever did and I called it this, I can well imagine people just going, "That's not what." Which is kind of the reaction I crave. Well, that's not really the reaction I crave. The reaction I crave for nicknames is people going, which is what a lot of people do, and I'm sure they will for this one. To take it from something quite complicated to something quite simple, Mankey evolves into Primeape, and Primeape is going to be called Silverback, because in gorilla families, the Silverback is generally like the alpha male, the leader, the prime ape. I told you, they're not all ridiculous and massively wordplay. This is just one that's a little bit simpler. Next up, we have Growlithe. Growlithe is going to be called Gym. Not J-I-M, but G-Y-M, as in the gymnasium. The reason for this is, you know, what reasons do you go to the gym? You go to the gym to become fitter, slimmer, toned, muscular, whatever. Some people like to go there to be sort of slimmer and more toned. A word for that is lithe. Lithe being sort of quite slim build. So you go to the gym to grow lithe. again, we're working with the different parts of the name to form this thing and give it a very simplistic nickname of Jin. There we go, Growlithe. Done. So, last up in this particular episode of nicknames, we have Arcanine. Now, Arcanine is going to be called Middlesbrough, which is a place in England. It's also a football team. Middlesbrough's heyday is gone. Its glory days are way past, I think. Don't really see them coming back to the fore anytime soon, but someone who used to play for Middlesbrough was a footballer called Julio Arca. Argentinian, I believe. Defender. Or defensive midfielder. Never really made the International Cup particularly. Not really in the style of Argentinians outside of maybe Tevez. Not Tevez, Mascherano. I'm getting completely sidetracked. Julio Arca was a footballer who played for Middlesbrough. Whilst at Middlesbrough, funnily enough, he scored a grand total of 9 goals. So Middlesbrough gives you Arca 9. There we go. So, that is going to be it from this particular episode of the Nickname Academy. Thank you all very much for watching. I do hope that you enjoyed. Remember, any nicknames that you have for these Pokemon, throw them down in the comment section below. I love seeing what kind of crazy nicknames you guys come up with for these particular Pokemon. We'll continue next week from the next Pokemon on the list. That's, of course, Poliwag. But until then, remember, guys, every Pokemon deserves a nickname, so make sure you give them one. My final thank you to you all for watching, and I guess with that, I'll see you next time. Laters.